Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Silicon Heartland show. This is our series of shows highlighting what's happening outside the coast. And the coast meaning basically California, Boston, and New York, where the venture capital has been concentrated for many years. And now we're starting to see it spread inland as remote working has taken off. And as many of these regions have really hit economic development very hard, and they're succeeding in bringing in new tech and new talent from other regions and grooming their own talent as well. So I'd like to welcome today's show Mike Green from Mountain State Capital. He's in Morgantown, West Virginia. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Rebecca. Great to see you. Glad to be here.
Good. No, I'm happy you're on the show. I really want to highlight what West Virginia is doing because I think some of these steps the state is taking have been very impactful, and including what you're doing with your own fund, Mountain State Capital. So I'll get to introduce what you're doing in a minute, but I just would like to let everyone know who has joined us for the first time what we're doing with this show. I would like to remind everyone that we do have a Q&A with the program, and you can insert your questions during the Q&A box in the Q&A box during our session, and that would be a good idea because Mike is a real expert. As you can see here, a little bit about his bio. He's been focusing in on startups, and he's had a very illustrious career in operations, working for Mark Andreessen's Cloud. He worked for Pittsburgh-based 4A Systems, which was acquired for a huge amount of money. Interestingly enough, he began his career at the NSA. He's obviously one of these math whizzes. He's got a BS in mathematics from Boston University, a master's from Johns Hopkins University. So quite a career here. And he's built quite a team as well at Mountain View. Alongside Mike is Matt Harbaugh, who's co-founder and managing director based in Pittsburgh. And Mike is based, what's about 2-hour drive away from Pittsburgh to Morgantown?
Yeah. If you hustle, you can make it an hour and a half.
Okay.
We usually refer to Pittsburgh.
And he has a venture partner.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Pittsburgh to Morgantown. Yeah, I've driven it a couple of times now. But the whole culture of Mountain View Capital is based on the region of Heartland values and Heartland culture, and the mountains as well, and Appalachia. Hearing good. What does Mountain State Capital invest in? Quite a few sectors, and Mike can tell us a little bit more about this in a moment. But software and IT is about half of it. Life sciences is about 1/3. Semiconductors, 10%. He's managing a $20 million fund, and they've made 25 investments so far. And let's see, they started 2018. So there you go. I'll tell you about Mountain View Capital. I think, Mike, you would like to talk about this Appalachian Investors Alliance, I know, which actually expands the impact of Mountain State Capital because you're going throughout this whole region then. So with many entrepreneurial companies and industry sectors. So I think let's stop the share here for a moment and let people get their questions warmed up. You can ask your questions here in the bottom, just type it in. I will be watching the Q&A box for the best questions and reading those out loud so that Mike can answer them. So Mike, how's the weather today in West Virginia?
Well, I think we're getting close to the winter time here, to be honest with you, Rebecca, but it's nice. I mean, the one thing about living in this region, we're a 4-season kind of community here, so we're kind of used to the seasons. I think that's just an excuse for those of us who live up here, who talk to our friends in Florida or California, that we like the seasons, but we really do, and it's really a great place to live. We're kind of immune from some of the crazy kind of weather that you get in other parts of the country, but it's lovely here in West Virginia, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you like the country living, right?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I live here outside of Morgantown, on a lake in the mountains, and so we get the advantage of being in a beautiful place to live, but still have proximity to major cities. We're close by to obviously Pittsburgh, and not a long drive to both DC and Baltimore, Columbus, and so on. And so, yeah, we feel like we're part of the world, and that's just a great place to kind of raise a family if you want to come here and live in West Virginia, and to recreate if you want to do that all four seasons of the year. That's a great place. Yeah.
Well, I understand that
logging people on here. I'm getting some notes from people that I know said that they were trying to log on, but I'm having a hard time getting there. I hope that they can figure it out and get on. We'll see what happens.
I hope so. Everybody was sent their Zoom link by email a couple of times.
You would think after 2.5-3 years, and you would have a PhD in Zoom. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's true. I sort of have a PhD in running these Zoom sessions by now, because I think I've done 55 shows over the past 2.5 years. And we've held the show globally with global venture capitalists from Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Israel, London, New York, Silicon Valley, where else in the US? And we've done the Heartland series this fall. We did Pittsburgh, Columbus, Cleveland, Indianapolis, and yet to go is Cincinnati. So we will have covered a few cities in the Heartland and talking about what's happening in the Heartland. So I know, it's interesting. We also did Tulsa, which Tulsa has the same kind of program that West Virginia does, of bringing in remote workers, of bringing in new talent to the region. So I know that Brad Smith started this, what is it called? West Virginia Remote, or West Virginia Forward. I think.
And they actually pay people to come here with their job, mostly for remote workers. And, Brad's a good friend, and he's really done a wonderful job of trying to promote, people to come back home. And he's a prime example of that. Brad was running, he was chairman and CEO of Intuit, and decided to give that up, and now is the president of Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. So he has really been an advocate for bringing people home, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we had Brad on our show early on, and that was when he was still at Intuit, and he really, I could tell he was homesick for West Virginia, and sure enough, he moved back where he grew up. But Mike, you grew up in the East Bronx.
Yeah, I'm a long way from my original home in the East Bronx. I think if you write my story, which is way too long to talk about, you would never figure that I would, quote, end up in outside of Morgantown, West Virginia. But I've been very, very fortunate. I had great parents who raised me well. I was fortunate enough to go, to college and to get into graduate school, and I joined the NSA back in 1969 after I graduated way back then with a math degree, and the NSA was hiring people with math degrees. And so I checked 2 boxes for them. I had a degree in mathematics and a pulse, and they were looking for people who could be trained in what they do. And back in those days, nobody even knew who the National Security Agency was. In fact, the acronym NSA sometimes stood for no such agency. But over time, I moved from working in the intelligence community as a member of the community to the outside world, and I've had a wonderful career. But it's a long way from the East Bronx to West Virginia. But I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, and you worked in Silicon Valley too, didn't you?
Yeah, I have a couple of opportunities there. In the year 2000, I was very fortunate to hook up with Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, and they started this company called Loud Cloud in the year 2000. We always say it was 10 years ahead of its time. Cloud services, when nobody even knew what the cloud was. But it was typical what my career was all about. After my jobs at the NSA, my career was only with startups, and I just love working with startups. And after my career ended, in working career, that is, that I've dedicated the last 20 plus years of my life to working with startups, first as an angel investor. And later on, we started, the first angel network here in West Virginia. Later on, the first angel fund in West Virginia. And then my partner, Matt Harbaugh, and I started Mountain State Capital in 2018. And I'm just thrilled to do what I do. It's a lot of fun, and a lot of rewards come out of it. Hopefully financial rewards for us as well as our limited partners, but that's the goal.
Okay. Well, what has it been like starting up one of the first or the first venture capital fund in West Virginia?
Yeah, when we first started, the first thing we learned, of course, is that we really did have to do a fair amount of education as to what angel investing was all about, ultimately what venture capital was all about, and we continue to do that. And a lot of that is true throughout the Heartland. And with our association with the Appalachian Investor Alliance, they've done a great job of promoting what angel investing is all about, what this is all about, to the point where people are now know the lingo, they know the language, they know what it's all about to do investments. But we continue to try to do more and more education there. But the success of Mountain State Capital is really a combination of us being good partners and collaborators with a lot of people. Shout out to my friends in Pittsburgh. We've had a great relationship there with the Pittsburgh Tech Council, with Innovation Works, with the incubators and the accelerators that exist in that community. And that community continues to be a great place for deal flow. But we've expanded with our association with the Appalachian Investor Alliance to the point where now we're basically have up to 18 active angel investment kind of funds, micro funds throughout the Heartland. And we're going to be adding another, as I recall, I think another 7 more in 2023. And that probably makes us the largest angel network in the country. It's certainly not the largest, one of the largest. And that's great because it gives us an opportunity to really spread the word as to why investing in the Heartland is a good thing to do. And as we go through this webinar, I'd like to talk about that because we really believe that investing in the Heartland is a really smart thing to do because of a lot of reasons, including the fact that you get better valuation in our community here than you would normally get on the East and the West Coast. Better value for our limited partners at more reasonable valuations is what I should say. So we're delighted by the fact that we're able to communicate, collaborate, and partner with a whole lot of really wonderful people throughout the Heartland. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. By working with these folks, we've managed to create a lot of great companies, and we want to continue to do so for a long time.
Okay, what is it about the Appalachian culture that makes it appropriate for innovations?
That's a great question. I think for the most part, it's because we're just used to having people like to work and like to do hard work. And this is hard work. But the fact is that when you live in the Heartland like we do, we like to use sports analogies here. We really do believe that investing in this community is really a local sport. And it's a ground game, if you will, to keep using those football analogies. We believe you've got to be close to the entrepreneurs, you have to be close to the customers, and you have to be on the ground day to day working with them. It doesn't mean that, the folks in Silicon Valley, Boston, New York, et cetera, don't do the same thing. But it's a unique culture. And I think that being close to the people and having them to have their ear to the ground or what's important to them has really made it a successful venture for us. And we're going to continue to do so because I think that's really critical.
Right. And so,
having that army out there, Rebecca, really does give us a unique opportunity to get the activity going and also get access to really, really good deals here in the Heartland.
Okay. And where are those deals coming from? Is West Virginia University a feeder? Is Carnegie Mellon University a feeder? OSU a feeder? Where is this talent coming from? Where is this innovation coming from?
Yeah,
Or is it just
the map of the Heartland, you'll see that there's tons and tons of excellent universities all over the place. Carnegie Mellon, of course, has been, is well known for having certainly a very, very good technology companies that have come out of that area. But you can throw a dart at the map, and you hit some great universities, including one in my backyard here at the West Virginia University and Marshall University. But throughout the Heartland, we've got great deal flow that come from a lot of these universities. The problem has been be able to extract those types of intellectual property and ideas from the universities, and then put the teams around the entrepreneurs, professors, et cetera, that come out of those universities, provide them the capital that's needed to create those companies, create management teams around them and with them to be able to actually bring those companies to a reality, to the point where that we really do have a robust system in order to make these companies successful. But it's a challenge. I mean, raising capital in this community is difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's really difficult, and it's one of the things that we continue to have challenges. But we don't have a lot of bench strength per se in terms of C-level executives that kind of live here. So we have two choices. We can either try to import them from other communities, or what we've been trying to do over the last 25 years is grow them here with good education coming from the universities or from people who have come here to try to help us train the next level of entrepreneurs and management personnel.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any of the coastal venture capitalists coming in and taking a look around yet?
No, we constantly see that. We each of us who have worked in this community have access to a lot of friends who live on the coasts. So what we really try to do is, as a seed and early stage investor, is to primarily try to get these companies started off and get it off the ground, and then we'll tap into our respective networks in order to bring additional capital to the region in the next series, the Series A's and Series B's that are needed for the growth phase of some of our companies.
Yeah, that's been some of the stumbling block, is that you could raise the first seed stage or maybe Series A, but then what do you do after that? You could get stuck, right?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but we're getting there. We really are. I mean, if you look at some of the companies that have come into our region, and of course I'm primarily focused a lot on West Virginia, you see a theme, and one of the themes is the introduction of more and more manufacturing opportunities here in our region. And the reason for that is many of our friends always say the reason that people want to come here is that we're used to building things. We create things here in West Virginia and the Heartland. With no disrespect to my friends on the Silicon Valley and in Boston and New York, not to say that tech companies there is not about building stuff, but a lot of that stuff is either software or IT. We've kind of blended that together with IT and good tech, but also at the end of the day, build stuff and create things. And it's kind of the nature of the community here in the Heartland. So if you look at some of the opportunities that are existing here, in particular in West Virginia, we have a company called Nucor, which is a steel manufacturer. It's coming here. It's invested in about $3 billion into building this new steel manufacturing facility here. We have Pure Watercraft here in West Virginia, which is building electric boats. We have Omnis. Now, this is interesting. Omnis is a company that moved its headquarters from Santa Barbara, California, to West Virginia to build affordable, attainable housing using concrete. These are the people who provided the IP for building the Freedom Tower in New York. And now they're taking that technology, concrete technology, their knowledge, to be able to build affordable houses in a kind of Lego block type of system for the whole country and ultimately the world. And this is really exciting. They came from California to Morgantown. Unbio, which is a South Korean company, is going to be building a manufacturing facility here in Morgantown to create insulin for the world. I mean, insulin is desperately needed across the world, and there's not enough production of that. Even a large company like Clorox. Now, Clorox we know builds bleach, but they're actually building another facility in the Eastern Panhandle in West Virginia to build a facility for manufacturing kitty litter. So, so all sorts of things are happening here. Amazon is here, Procter & Gamble is here. Toyota has been a big manufacturer here throughout with the Heartland. We have a lot of auto manufacturing going on here. But we also have what many people don't realize. We have a lot of great clean energy projects that are going on here in West Virginia and throughout the Heartland. Obviously we get people who talk about West Virginia and coal and it's dirty and all these types of things. But over the last several years, there's been a lot of research through our universities and our affiliates here to improve on the use of coal and natural gas in a cleaner way. People talk about the fact that we have all these power plants out there that use the feedstock, the coal and natural gas, and God knows probably wood and biofuels. And we're all concerned about the environment. This is not something new to us. We've always cared about here in West Virginia. But I'm also aware of the fact that there's a lot of research going on into the ability to be able to extend the life of our power plants. Power plants are not that complicated, and I'm no expert on this, but basically the idea is to burn stuff to create steam to turn turbines, and the turbines create electricity. So I do know that there's a lot of technology going on, particularly in the use of hydrogen. So if we can do things like use hydrogen to burn our coal and natural gas even hotter, that will lead us to a situation where we have less pollution, and the byproducts of that will be hydrocarbons that are probably useful, like graphite and things of that nature, and the pollutants will go away because what comes out of the power plants hopefully will just be water. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the Heartland that people don't know about that are much to make use of these natural resources that we have. So here in West Virginia, we have obviously plenty of coal, we have natural gas, but we also have a lot of water. And what that means is that what we've actually created here, one of the investments that we've made at Mountain State Capital is in a company called Appalachian Salmon. Okay, now why Appalachian Salmon in West Virginia? What is that all about? Well, it turns out, and I'll put this in a kind of a funny way, I mean, even though our limited partners or investors want us to change the world and make a lot of money and things of that nature, but we're also certainly involved in doing things like finding opportunities to help feed the world, okay? And so Appalachian Salmon was created, and due to the great work by my partner, Matt Harbaugh, and so we at Mountain State Capital basically took a page out of the venture studio world to the point where we discovered that West Virginia has great water, and especially in the southern part of West Virginia. And who knew? I certainly did not know that the water that's down there is absolutely perfect and pristine for the growing, if you will, of salmon. So we've actually got involved in creating a company using our initial funding, our seed funding, for the engineering facilities that are going to be created, and later on build a manufacturing facility that will provide salmon, which is obviously needed in the world as a great source of protein. But it is certainly going to be very good for that, and also for us here in West Virginia.
Oh, great. When can we all try Appalachian salmon?
We hope soon. We're on the early stage of that, but that's what we are all about. We're a seed and early stage venture capital company. So we like to get in early into these companies to help create these companies, and then eventually want to raise additional money later on. Right. But it's not only salmon. I mean, there's a company out of Kentucky, out of Moorhead, Kentucky, called App Harvest, dealing with what we call the food tech industry, right. Combining technology, using AI and robotics in a farming way in order to produce vegetables in indoor facilities to provide fresh vegetables to 70% of the country, which is in one day's drive from Moorhead, Kentucky, and also here in West Virginia. So we're in an interesting location here that can provide a lot of things that are relatively close by, because we have the ability to move products, because we have rivers, we have roads, we have good infrastructure, we have rail to be able to move things across the country, and this is a really important part of why people are coming to the Heartland to do manufacturing. So there's a lot of really good stuff going on here, Rebecca.
Well, how long do you think it'll take before the economy of West Virginia really picks up? I mean, this tech economy is part of the story, but isn't it still a pretty small part of the overall picture for West Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, we West Virginians we're proud of where we've come up from in the last few years. Recent article said we were one of the first in economic growth in the country. It's a much lower cost of living, 16% lower than the average in the U.S. It's a lower cost of doing business. Like I said, you're one day's drive away from most major markets in the U.S. and Canada. I talked about the infrastructure we have here, the good weather, the water. It's a great place to live and raise your family. I sound like
you should be in the tourism board. No,
yeah, tourism board or the Chamber of Commerce, but it really is. We have our top universities. We have great healthcare. We have an arts community. So, and four-season recreation. So what else do you need?
Yeah.
It's really a good place to go. And that's true for the rest of the Heartland as well, not only here.
Well, what about the rich and poor, the gap between rich and poor? If you drive through West Virginia, you see a lot of trailers and, there's some areas that are still left behind.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia is, if you look at a map of West Virginia, it's the oddest shape state,
Yeah.
in the country. You've got the Eastern Panhandle, which is, for all intents and purposes, Washington, D.C. community. You have the Northern Panhandle, which is Wheeling and Pittsburgh. But the southern part of West Virginia remains very, very sad.
Yeah.
A lot of the coal was extracted from the southern part of West Virginia. Our tourism people are trying to really make that a destination place for people who like the outdoors, with the trails that we have down there, that people can really get out into the woods. But it's a challenge for us. North Central West Virginia, where I am, is a very fast growing community. But with the likes of the southern part of the state, like I just mentioned, Appalachian salmon, and the founder, Austin Caperton, has just done a tremendous job in trying to raise the awareness of the southern part of West Virginia as being viable for businesses and manufacturing, because it's a great people down there, which is really, again, part of the reason why living and working in the Heartland is really a really benefit to the world, because we do have great people who know how to build things and make things.
Sure. Yeah, I'm thinking of that area of West Virginia, the Hatfield-McCoy and all the squabbles, the family battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Hatfield-McCoy story is one that's told a lot around here in the southern part of West Virginia and Kentucky. It's part of our history and our legacy, and it's part of who we are. But really testament to the fact that it's still a very hardworking people. You think about the people who came across those mountains, years and years ago. These were hardy people. Those of us who still drive around and say, how in the world did they get over those mountains and decide, this is a good place to live, with all the challenges that exist in the communities around here. But
you can really get away from it all too, which is nice, I think, and maybe have some time to think and reflect rather than be caught up in the whole frenzy of interneting all the time, maybe.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. I mean, going back to our roots here, in the fact that we're successful here in Appalachia, a lot of it has to do with the Appalachian Regional Commission has given us a good amount of money in order to create some of these micro venture funds that we've created around here. If the audience is not familiar with the Appalachian Regional Commission, it really starts in New York and goes down south, even into Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi. West Virginia, ironically, is the only state that's completely in the Appalachian Regional Commission. And it consists of I think it's 13 states and 420 counties and over 200,000 square miles of land.
Right.
They have been such a good partner here in helping us actually grow the Appalachian Investors Alliance to the state we're in now. So I got a picture there.
Yeah, this is actually in my book, this map, you can see, hopefully you can see. So yeah, that whole Appalachian Regional Commission, or what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, it's really been great. And for anybody in the audience who's interested in creating another micro fund here in the greater Appalachian area or throughout the Midwest, let us know.
What does it take? How much money do you have to have?
It's all grant funded by the ARC. So if you want to start a microfund here in Appalachia, anywhere in the ARC region, the AIA folks will help you do that. They will nurture you through the whole process and then provide a whole lot of education and a lot of hand-holding on the financial side, as well as trying to help people navigate through the waters of being investors and finding good deals. And there are tons of good deals out here.
What's the size of a microfund? Starting 1 million, 2 million?
Yeah, usually most of ours are anywhere between $500,000 up to about $2 million. But we've had some situations where they've outgrown that quickly, started a second and then even a third fund here, especially in the Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia area, which is very, very full of great opportunities.
Okay, and do they provide matching funds to whatever amount the fund initially raises? Is that how it works?
No, it's mostly the ARC is providing most of the organizational funding to get this off the ground and providing the services to keep it going. But we rely on the communities to raise their money within the community. And those funds are actually managed by the people in the community, with guidance from the board here at AIA. And it's very collaborative. We meet regularly, we share due diligence. And when we find opportunities, we share that and syndicate that throughout the entire region. And that's been a very big part of the success of why AIA, the Appalachian Investors Alliance, has been successful. And we want to continue to grow that. It's a big part of why things are growing here in Appalachia. Seem to have frozen there for a second.
Okay, so we have some skeptical questions. I just opened the questions here. Are there any real investment opportunities in your region?
I'm sorry.
Real in capital letter. Are there any real investment opportunities in your region?
Yeah. I mean,
I think you just answered it, right?
I certainly hope so. I rattled off a whole bunch of companies that are doing manufacturing, and people would say, well, what does that have to do with entrepreneurship? And the answer should be obvious, but maybe it's not. When these larger companies come in and they create manufacturing facilities, there's a cottage industry that's going to grow around them. They're going to need services. They're going to need small businesses to around that. And every time we see one of these companies come in, what we see adjacent to that is something, okay, you need more services around them. So when Procter & Gamble opened up in the Eastern Panhandle, all sorts of companies started and they needed funding, they needed adult supervision, they needed C-level executives to help them. And that's what we're trying to create here in Appalachia and the greater Heartland, is that these manufacturing companies are going to need people, they're going to need services, and they're going to need additional tech. So this is something that works. And there's plenty of opportunities.
Okay.
Where we are in Mountain State Capital, we, as you said, we exhausted basically the money that we raised the first time around with our 25 investments and reserving what we call dry powder for the companies that in our portfolio that need additional funding. So now my brilliant partners and myself, Matt Harbaugh and Nick Pachuta, along with Jim Hart and the Appalachian Investors Alliance, we're now looking, okay, what's the future look like? We're so now considering, well, we got to do another fund because there's so many opportunities we're missing right now that we don't have the funding to do. So raising capital is important, and we intend to continue to do that and try to create more opportunities here in the whole Heartland. And if you look at our footprint where we invest, we're very opportunistic beyond just the Heartland and Greater Appalachia, that we'll look at a nationwide kind of investment strategy to create companies and invest wherever we think there are great opportunities.
You would invest outside of the region?
Yeah,
is that what I understand?
Yeah, we have, and we will continue to do so. Our focus is the Heartland, but our responsibility is to our limited partners, our investors, to make wise investments. And if we see an opportunity that's not specific to the Heartland, we have, and we will continue to look at those opportunities.
Okay. So curious how Kelman here with the question, are you allowed to say what projects or areas you did at NSA?
No, or else, because Hal, if I did, I would have to come and shoot you, and I don't want to do that. You seem like a nice guy. I had a great experience there.
Yes.
telling a friend of mine the other day is that, I started there in 1969. Had I been able to stay there my entire career, I loved my job there, to be honest with you. I had more fun than anybody was allowed to have fun with. I had more computers to play with. In the early days, I was trained to be a crypt analyst. That's a code breaker. But the last 5 years that I spent there as an employee, as an employee, was mostly migrating myself into a software developer where I worked with supercomputers, which got me into writing code for networks when networks were tantamount to tin cans and wet string. I'm that old. I mean, it was very, very slow. And so we had a lot of fun there. And but the specific things that I did there were not anything I could talk about now, other than the fact that I tell people when you work in the intelligence community, you work under a lot of pressure. I mean, they do indoctrinate you to the point where what you do every single day saves lives and is really important to people out in the field. So I understood what pressure was all about. But I really did not know what pressure was all about until I got to public companies. When you have to make your numbers, because your public company is no longer run by your company, it's run by Wall Street. So every 13 weeks, you've got to make your numbers and you've got to meet what Wall Street expectations about. That's pressure. That's real pressure, different kind of pressure. But what we do every day is pressure. We are so committed to try to create great companies in the heartland and leave a legacy for the future. Our future depends on small businesses and entrepreneurs who are going to create good opportunities here. And again, the reason that we're successful here is because we're used to building stuff. We're used to creating things, right? And those manufacturing companies I mentioned earlier are all part of that. And that's part of our culture. Southern West Virginia is the birthplace of the chemical industry when Union Carbide and Dow were down there in South Charleston. It's a shame that that's kind of disappeared, but we need to bring that back. And you, in particular, who are an expert on China and talk about this all the time in your books, realize that, and we certainly realized that during the pandemic, that we've got to bring these manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. We can't continue to rely on China for all the things that we do, including pharmaceuticals and all sorts of technology that not only gets created here and stolen over there, we've got to bring that back and create good manufacturing facilities here in our own country. And
definitely. That's what John Chambers was talking about when he was on our show earlier on, because he's from that region of Charleston, West Virginia, where the chemical manufacturing was based. And is that chemical manufacturing ever going to come back? I mean, the Intel in semiconductors is a step forward, but what about in the chemical industry?
Probably not. I mean, all those great brilliant scientists we had in South Charleston are pretty much left the region by now. The Dow chemical, community there in Union Carbide is a shell of what it used to be, and it's very sad. Because all of that intelligence that was here was doing great things is no longer what it used to be. Will it come back in the future? I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah, that's partly why I wrote this new book, Silicon Heartland, because I could see the same trends happening that I saw in China very early on, kind of a new frontier market. On a very early stage, venture capital just starting to have an impact, and companies just starting to get to be at a stage where they could have, enough revenues to sustain themselves. And so now we're starting to see some of these success stories out of the heartland or the Midwest, and it's kind of exciting to see it. But there are also, setbacks too, just like I saw in China. There are setbacks. A couple of companies that I wrote about, I've already had some challenging times. I won't name any names right now, but Mike, I know you know at least one that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, so let's see what else. Hal Kalman has a question on semiconductors. Sure. Okay. With only $10 that you have to invest, but you're going to be raising more. How can you originate these investments in some of these more technical sectors, or do you have to remain a passive investor?
We've got investments in a couple of semiconductor companies. One of us called Arieka, which has built a very fine company here out of the Pittsburgh area, and now has got collaboration with the Japanese and the Koreans. And what it is they produced a product that basically helps in the heat dissipation of a lot of these boards that are created with a lot of chips on them. People didn't think about that years ago, but as these chips get faster and faster, create a lot of heat, there was a need for technology in order to mitigate the issues of excessive heat in some of our semiconductor solutions. So that's an example of one. We have a company called Aspinity, which has built a great company around the strategy of producing chips that actually are used for companies that are focused on providing solutions that are for things that are only battery operated. Okay, we all are used to, Siri and Amazon and Alexa and all those types of things. That's going to become a huge opportunity for companies like Aspinity, because people are getting used to the fact that things are battery powered. Well, the work that Aspinity has done is to extend the battery life by putting their chips into a lot of these types of products. And that's going to become a very, very good investment for us in the future as well. So, I didn't want to imply that everything we're doing here is kind of hard manufacturing stuff here in the greater Heartland, because a lot of the things that we do are tech-based. And we see a lot of that going on in a lot of our companies. I think it's hard to ignore the fact that almost everything you do is going to have some sort of piece of technology associated with it. And we try to leverage technology into a lot of our manufacturing stuff. Omnis, that I mentioned earlier, that's building a lot of these affordable, attainable houses out of concrete, has taken the advantage of great technology, not only for the areas associated with electricity and water, but also for the fact that insulation and things like that can be done more effectively by using today's technology, and also communications and also infrastructure. So technology is a big part of a lot of the manufacturing that's going on as well.
Is West Virginia seeing some new money coming in and new resources coming in with the Build Back Better plan?
Yeah, like most states, everybody has gotten an allocation from the federal government that trickles down to the state. There's a number of programs out there. And but a lot of them, to be frank, some of these programs do require private investments as well, or private capital to match federal and state money. And that becomes a challenge in a state like West Virginia, to be honest with you, when there's only one venture capital firm called Mountain State Capital, which has exhausted its first fund. So although there's a lot of money out there filtering down from the feds into the state, it's really important for us and other venture capitalists to come forward and raise private equity to match the existing money that's coming in from the federal government, because a lot of that stuff has that quid pro quo, that if you're going to take our money, you also have to match that with private equity as well. And that's a challenge.
Right. Now, how do you source your deals?
By getting the word out, having good exits, throughout the whole combination of Mountain State Capital and in particular AIA, because Mountain State Capital we're still very young. We didn't make our first investment until 2019. So we're in that early stage of that 10-year cycle of venture capital where we're making all our bets now. And then we'll start to hopefully harvest some of those to have some good exits. But through the AIA, the Appalachian Investors Alliance, we've had some great exits. We've had a couple of unicorns. And so, those word gets around and people say, wait a minute, if I can get good, fair valuations in the Heartland, maybe as part of my overall, let's call it diversification strategy, from a traditional West Coast investor or East Coast investor, maybe I should make some bets in the Heartland as well, because I'll get maybe more bang for my buck, because the valuations are, quote, more reasonable than I would normally get from our West Coast VC. So we intend to leverage that and try to get more opportunities for more investors, more banks, more private equity companies to say, hey, this is a reasonable place to put our money, because they're getting in early, which means you get a better piece of the company, and then we'll have good exits in the future. So that's part of our overall strategy, Rebecca.
You said you're already seeing some exits from that.
Yeah.
Investors Alliance.
Yeah, the Appalachian Investors Alliance has had a number of really good exits. So one of them, let me see if I can pick one out. Let's see, a company out of Ironton, Ohio called Pure Cycle, which does recycled plastics and make it. Is a situation. Well, that's a good story. So
yeah,
here,
I know. They're in my book, in my new book, Silicon Heartland. Yeah, I visited Pure Cycle.
Oh,
and,
that's great.
Yeah, and
upside down.
I met with their. I saw their feedstock and the whole thing. Yeah.
But here's an example of a company that was started years ago by a seed investor who did something similar to what Austin Caperton and Matt Harbaugh put together with Appalachian Salmon, and that is the opportunity to get in early, do a lot of the early engineering, and then leverage that it took time, but leverage that into some debt financing in the future to build a manufacturing facility, and ultimately go to an IPO. I mean, that's music to the ears of venture capitalists. That's how we make our money. But it all starts with good ideas by hungry entrepreneurs who are smart enough to get started, bring enough people in to help them build their companies, get a good management team around it, and then grow it. And that's a great example. So read Rebecca's book and hear more about Pure Cycle. Great.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I spent a lot of time with Pure Cycle. But it's very different from Silicon Valley type of innovation in that it's industrial innovation, really. It's in the whole
northwest of Huntington, West Virginia. This is part of the heartland. And
sure. Well, I'm originally from that area. My grandparents, my parents, and so I know the area. And when I went back to do research in that vicinity, it was a homecoming for me. And so weird. On a flight recently, New York to San Francisco, at the end of the flight, the fellow said, well, have a good evening. And we hadn't spoken the whole evening, and he was my seatmate, right? We hadn't spoken the entire flight. And so I said, oh, he said, are you going home? And I said, well, yeah, it's my part-time home, San Francisco. And he said, what's the other part-time? I said, New York. And then I said, but I grew up in Ohio. And he said, oh, so did I. He said he grew up in Ironton, Ohio.
Really?
I'm on the San Francisco to New York flight. Yeah. And it was just so weird. I've had a lot of coincidences like that since I started researching and writing and getting this new book out. So it seems to be just a natural evolution.
And they're
but anyhow, Pure Cycle's a good story, and
just an example of some of the companies that exist in the heartland in towns like Ironton or Moorhead, Kentucky, which is about an hour's drive, I guess, west of Huntington, and they're there, and that's why the AIA. That's why we're so important, because we're on the ground looking for these types of opportunities in the heartland. And like I said, it's a ground game, and you've got to be out there. You can't be a passive type of VC and really be successful. I think that's true also in Silicon Valley, Boston, and New York, but it's more important here in the heartland to be out there with the entrepreneurs.
Okay.
We're getting.
Well, good. Now there's another question here. A lot of states are going to be using the Treasury SSBCJ funds to match equity investments. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
as an investor and an advisor.
Yeah, it is the one I kind of mentioned earlier. We should be taking advantage of that. West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, we've all gotten allocations through that program. Mm-hmm. But like I said, they all do require private equity, private funding to match it before it can be deployed into equity investments. Part of that program, of course, can be used for some debt financing and other things. But for us who live in the world of trying to create companies and getting equity investments going and starting companies, we need the matching funds in order to take advantage of that. And God help us, we need capital, and we certainly got to have more VCs and more capital coming in for those particular projects to be providing good funding for us.
Does it ever get discouraging?
Sure, once in a while, but I'm not. That's not in my nature. I mean, I get up every day trying to fix things. It's the thing I've been doing since I was a kid, which led me to the National Security Agency, where I got to, solve problems every single day and do puzzles. and trust me, doing investments in the heartland as a VC is a lot of puzzle fixing and trying to figure stuff out every single day. But it's what gets me up in the morning, and something that I just love to do. Work with entrepreneurs, work with young people, and I'm fortunate to work with some great people. My partners, Matt and Nick, and all the people at AIA, and all my friends throughout West Virginia. And we do collaborate and communicate all the time, especially here in West Virginia, where we're half a degree of separation from everybody. We all know each other. We all know our politicians on a first name basis. We have one that's been very active lately in Senator Joe Manchin. And everybody knows everybody here, so it gives us the opportunity to break down walls quickly and get things done quicker here in the heartland, because there's an inherent kind of trust in the community that basically says, if you know the right people, you can get things done and get them done quickly. And that's what I love about living here and working here in the heartland.
So how does it compare to some of the other states, like your neighboring state, Ohio, which has been very active and seems to have had quite a bit of success so far?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things have developed, certainly in the Columbus area, where a lot of really wonderful things have been happening. A lot of capital has come into Columbus, Cincinnati, and in particular in Cleveland. So yeah, Ohio has become a really good part. We've been focusing in Appalachia here on the eastern part, I guess we're the eastern part of Ohio, where you find, Ironton in particular. So yeah, I mean, we really think there are great things that are going to happen in Ohio, which is a big state with lots of money and some really great entrepreneurs and a lot of good universities, of course. So that's where a lot of these ideas emanate from, our great universities. We've got to do a better job of, as I said earlier, to be able to extract that IP and create good companies around them. And that takes capital, and it takes management. And we're going to continue to try to do that every single day.
So how do you work with the Pittsburgh community then? You're so close to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh does have VCs and angel investors and a very large tech ecosystem. How do you work with them?
We're very fortunate. I lived up in Pittsburgh for a number of years. My partner, Matt Harbaugh, lives in Pittsburgh. We know that community very, very well. So we work closely with the universities as well, with the incubators and accelerators there. I don't think most of the VCs that work around Pittsburgh will tell you the same thing. There's still not enough capital. I mean, you still need capital even in Pittsburgh. We're still struggling to get more capital for the companies that have been created there. And so it's not a matter of competition there. We all cooperate with each other. In the Pittsburgh region in particular, is a big part of, even didn't mention it earlier, Pittsburgh is part of this ARC region. Pittsburgh is part of Appalachia. They would call it Appalachia because when you cross the Mason-Dixon line, they changed that from Appalachia to Appalachia. But besides the fact, there's just still tremendous opportunities in Western Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh being the hub of that. And we'll continue to look at great opportunities to come out of that particular region.
Yeah, no longer such a steel town, but becoming a tech town.
Yeah, when we moved back to Pittsburgh with Four Systems back in 1990, it was Pittsburgh. The way people remember Pittsburgh with the steel town and all the negative things but look at it now. It is a thriving technology hub for not only tech, but med devices and life science projects. And our partner, Matt Pachuta, has been part of that community for a long time, and he has identified so many wonderful opportunities, in particular in med devices and life science projects, many of which are coming out of Western Pennsylvania. So that area there with robotics and AI and ML and cool tech words that are coming out and buzzwords is a thriving community for driving new technologies and also for great investments for seed and early stage investors like us.
Sure. Okay. So here's a question. What is the thesis for your Fund 2? And what have you learned in your first fund?
We learned a lot. I mean, a lot of us have learned the hard way as to, how to pick the winners. And I may go contrary to what my partners might say here, but to me, it's all about the people. ultimately, it's not about the thing. People talk about the jockey or the horse. And what we've learned, I think, that we want to diversify our portfolio so that we invest in things we know something about. We do believe that life sciences, med devices, medical things are the future. We've invested about 40% of our current portfolio there. And with Nick's guidance, we've been able to find tremendous opportunities in life sciences and medical devices in particular. So we're going to focus on that. There'll always be an IT tech component of everything we do because that's my background and so is Matt's. So we'll look for that. But at the end of the day, we look at the people. And I've had this conversation with a lot of other VCs when we talk about what we look for in these companies. And we say to each other, yeah, it was a great idea. But as soon as we get to that pause where we throw the word but in there, it's usually a but about the personality or the quality of the people that we're dealing with. And the ones that we run from are the ones that our gut tells us there's something missing here. There's something wrong here. Is this person going to be a good steward of our money? Are they going to be able to build a company? Are they going to be able to build a team? Are they going to be able to raise money in the future? And do they get it? And I can't quantify that exactly, okay? We all have learned over the years that we like to deal with people who get it. And there's an expression that says,
so would you invest in?
They don't get it.
Elon Musk?
Yeah, I mean, we like to deal with people who really understand that it's not about bits and bytes all the time. It's not about dollars and cents. It's about flesh and blood. And you used this term at the beginning. It's about the culture. It's about the right way of doing things. And that's what's so unique about investing in the Heartland. It's the culture of hardworking people who get it. And when you use that but word, when you're talking about investing, I think that's the time where we say, there's something wrong here. I just don't think that this is going to work. And so we want to nurture that by working with people who do get it, who know and understand that they have to do their homework. They have to do due diligence. We do our due diligence when we're learning to invest, but they also have to do due diligence. And they know how to. One of the things we've definitely learned is the fact that we've got to teach our people how to make better pitches, how to talk to investors. We are not here to be entertained and to be educated. We are here to be able to try to discern whether or not you are a good investment as stewards of the money from our limited partners who are investors, who say one thing and very simply, I'm going to give you a little bit of money, but my expectation is you're going to give me a lot of money back in the future. That's what they want. And with the exception of Appalachian salmon and App Harvest, we're not here to solve world hunger. In those cases, we are. But our real problem and our real goal is to provide our limited partners with a good return on their investment. And we've learned that over the years as to how to be discerning and how to pick good companies. And that's what we're going to continue to focus on, assuming we do Mountain State Capital 2 or whatever we decide to call that. But we intend to do that in the future.
So with Mountain State Capital 2, would you consider a software-based approach to creating a 3D reality comparable to the metaverse?
No, I'm going to stay away from the metaverse. I don't think that's going to be one of the areas we're going to invest in. We're not going to invest in that. And I suspect, based on the news of the last few days, probably cryptocurrency might not be something we would probably like to invest in right now. I feel sorry for people who have thrown their money in that particular circus. So,
right.
Okay.
Wow, a lot of good questions, and I think we already answered this last one here about how what you think about the nature of founders and so forth. So you answered that already very well. So yeah, it was a real pleasure to have you on the show, Mike. And I thank you everyone for participating. And look, our next show will be after Thanksgiving. It's right around the corner. Thanksgiving is next week already. And then, so the next one is going to be Cincinnati, December 16th. Actually, before then, we're going to be doing an invite-only event in New York City, where we'll be doing a live event. And Mike, you're certainly welcome if you want to drive up to New York City and join us. Okay. I'll be doing a preview of my new book and showing some photographs from the book that have never before been seen. So the photos are maybe even better than the book, than the text. I just showed you the preview copy. We're waiting for the hardcover edition. So the book's on pre-order now at Amazon. But this is pretty much it already. I mean, I just got it a week ago. So I'm very happy with it. I'm really pleased with it. I'm really pleased with our Heartland series of AskAVC shows. So thank you. If everyone would please join the Silicon Dragon membership, we could keep going for a whole nother year. And we've got a lot of ground to cover. The Heartland is big. The Midwest is big. The world is big. And we've already had 55 VCs on our show. So we got a ways to go still. Mike, you did a great job. Thank you so much for being our guest today. We really appreciate it. Any final comments?
No, thank you for all you're doing. I've read through your books, and for those of you who are watching here, spend the money, go to Amazon or wherever you buy your books and buy Rebecca's books. They're really worth reading, and I can't wait to get my copy of your new book and see what you've written about us in there.
Oh, good. I'm
curious. But thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all.
Yeah. No, I think we're going to be doing an event in Morgantown at West Virginia University in March. So I'll have the hardcover books in, and I'll definitely have one signed for you.
I appreciate that. Looking forward to seeing you here back in Morgantown.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. See you again. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.